Welcome, people. It's Mark chapter 11, and we're going to continue in this. It's an interesting passage we have today. I'm continuing from yesterday. I want to read this. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple area and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and wouldn't allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations?" I want to tell you, people, God hates injustice. Yesterday we saw how he gives stern warning on the issue of hypocrisy. But Jesus now turns his attention to those who are ripping people off. And God hates injustice. That's why we should hate injustice. People often say to me, "Why do you hate injustice so much?" I say, simply because God hates it. And God does not approve of the abuse of power. That is simply a great definition of what injustice is about. It's simply an abuse of power. Now look around the world. Do we not see that pretty much everywhere? We see the abuse of power politically. We see the abuse of power in a home where one person thinks he's more better or dominating than the other one and will abuse the power or the authority that they believe that they have. God hates the abuse of power. And in this particular context, here these people are. They walked for miles to come to the Passover. They walked from across the country, and they brought their sacrifices. And those that couldn't bring a sacrifice because they didn't have the money for one were able to at least go to the temple court and to buy a dove. And they would take this dove to the priest and say, "This is the best that I can do. This is the best that I can afford." And after walking all that distance and all that way, and they're tired and they're exhausted, and at the end of the day, there's some oak there who wants to abuse his power and abuse these people by ripping them off. God hates that passionately. And you see how passionate he was. Jesus, with a whip, overturning the temple, the tables at the temple, throwing them out of the temple, disgusted at their behavior. That's the Jesus who's angry. And he's evidencing his anger in an outrage of saying, "I hate the abuse of people." Now look around us, people. Don't we see it everywhere? And sometimes we kind of almost turn a blind eye to it. I think we should get angry with injustice. There's a couple of things that will get you out of your chair and church in warming a pew, and that is anger. Anger is a great motivation for change. Anger is a great motivation to say, "I'm sick and tired of seeing this abuse, and I'm going to do something about it." You see, I can make you sad by telling you stories of abuse, and you will cry. I can make you glad that you don't suffer abuse. I can make you feel, mad that when you are so mad that you see abuse, that is what's going to get you to rise up and do something about it. I don't think the church gets angry enough with the issue of abuse. You say, "Oh, Trevor, we thought anger was a negative attitude." Not at all. It can be. But the problem with anger is we get angry with the wrong things, don't we? We get angry because we have to stand in a queue. Man, for goodness sake, people, grow up. We don't need to be angry because of standing in a queue and making a fuss over the little incidentals of life. Why don't we take that anger and let's address it to a cause of injustice where we say, "This is just not good enough. I can't stand this anymore. I'm going to get out of my chair. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to do something to address this injustice." I appeal to you to get angry. Get angry. There's a righteous anger. There's a righteous indignation, and I don't think we use it enough. We tend to put on blinkers and blind eyes. We change the channel on TV when we see these things that make us feel like that. Don't do that. Feed your anger. Feed your righteous anger against these things until it causes you to rally together with others who feel the same anger towards the cause. When you see that and you see people joining together, that, people, is a powerful place to be. Get into that. Get your church angry at injustice. Get your church out of the pew to do something to help those who suffer the abuse of those who think. They think they have power, but they don't, because God is the one who has the ultimate power. Man, I get excited about this thing. I'm just angry when I see some of the gender-based violence that are taking place. You men have got to stop beating your wives out there, man. It's awful. And I get angry when I think of children being dumped in dumpsters. I get angry with the injustice of that. I get angry with the injustice of poverty and corruption and the fact that people are not getting what they justly deserve because some fat cat is taking what he doesn't deserve. People, the church should be the center of this feeling of anger towards the issues of injustice. If Jesus did, how much more shouldn't we? Think about that this weekend, guys, and have a great one. We'll see you next week. Bye.
You hear me when I call. You are my morning sun. Though darkness fills the night, it cannot hide the light. Whom shall I fear? You crush the enemy underneath my feet. You are my sword and shield. Though troubles linger near, whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of Israel armies is always by my side. The one who lives forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of Israel armies is always by my side. My strength is in your name, for you alone can save. You will deliver me. Yours is the victory. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of Israel armies is always by my side. The one who lives forever. He is a friend of mine. The God of Israel armies is always by my side. And nothing formed against me shall stand. You hold the whole world in your hand. I'm holding on to your promises. You are faithful. You are faithful. Nothing formed against me shall stand. You hold the whole world in your hand. I'm holding on to your promises. You are faithful. You are faithful. You are faithful. I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of angel armies is always by my side.